I'm really sitting here shaking my head. You know, I'm sitting here healing. I got my tooth surgery. My eyes getting better. I got the file, get all that dead off my back paws. And I get a call from my son Boogie, like, guess what? Cam just called me, sent me some money so I could go on an interview. Cam, this is a whole new level of low. It's just not proper conduct to bring children or my children or anyone's children in. And I know Larry made the call, but to try to divide a family and take advantage, manipulate my child, all because you're too scared to have a direct conversation with me about the things you said about me, kind of shows your pedigree of pettiness. I'm just disgusted, and I think you should be ashamed of yourself. You, Larry, you have children, you have a family, and you are going to use my kids or whatever trauma that you think they have, or separation or dividedness, I don't know why you would think that, to make whatever point. This is how you treat people you grew up with that helped you. This is how petty. I wouldn't suggest you did this with any enemy, any op. You know, in gangsters like to keep the kids and the family out of it. You're too sensitive, Cam. This is not the way I would expect you to conduct your business. Try a little better, get a little neater. Every time you say something, I hear about it as you're saying it. It's never like a surprise. But my children, Boogie, you sent the man money. You think he's gonna jump off the bridge for $5,000? You sent him $2,500. You should be ashamed of yourself a minute. Someone should talk to you. I know Mace, and I know the girl next to you. I know your crew can't be jacking that pause. I know they can't tell you, yo, that's dope. Go for this family. Peace, bro. Still love you.
There is something elemental in the way communities fracture. It has always been true that alliances built on public performance prove fragile under the weight of private betrayal. The collapse is rarely spectacular in its immediacy, but rather in its reverberations, how the story repeats across generations, mediums, and empires. Once, the stage of such fracture was a street corner or a neighborhood. Later, it was the newsroom or the university. Now it is Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter. The saga surrounding Destiny, Pixie, Hassan, ABBA, and Preach is no aberration. It is a reminder that the new technologies of streaming, podcasting, and live debate are not liberated from the frailties of human character. They have, if anything, accelerated and amplified those frailties. When a lawsuit was filed accusing Destiny of weaponizing intimacy by distributing private images without permission, it was not only a legal matter. It became a referendum on loyalty, trust, and the ability of creators to stand apart from those they once called allies. Hassan's praise of ABBA and Preach for their critique of Destiny is more than a passing remark. It is a window into the morality of digital brotherhood, what it means to speak against someone with whom you once shared space, what it means to preserve one's integrity in a culture that thrives on complicity. To understand this moment requires tracing the architecture of online alliances. Streamers and commentators do not merely appear together. They construct shared audiences, build collaborative mythologies, establish themselves as companions in a cultural battlefield that is as much about identity as it is about ideas. Viewers come to expect their constellations of creators to remain stable, and when they fracture, the disappointment is both personal and political. Destiny and ABBA once shared a rhythm, a cadence of argument and counter-argument, a sense of familiarity, forged in hours of recorded debates. Preach, too, entered that orbit, and for viewers, the sight of these men exchanging perspectives was a sign of digital cosmopolitanism, the illusion that disagreement could coexist with camaraderie. But illusions falter when confronted with the hard surface of betrayal. The accusation against Destiny was not about a difference in ideology. It was about the most intimate form of exploitation, the circulation of private images without consent. Suddenly, the terrain shifted. What had once been political became personal. What had once been theory became harm. When Pixie's case emerged, it carried with it a sense of reckoning. These were not the stakes of an ordinary internet dispute. The accusation invoked something older and deeper, the violation of trust in its rawest form. To circulate what was meant to be private is to reduce intimacy to weaponry, to make a trophy of vulnerability. In a culture that often treats women as collateral in debates staged by men, the lawsuit was not just about one man's actions. It was about the conditions that allow those actions to flourish. And it demanded a response from those who had shared space with him, those who had built platforms alongside him. What made ABBA and Preach critique significant was not only the content of what they said, but the fact that they chose to say it at all. In the economy of digital creators, silence is often the path of least resistance. To criticize a former ally risks losing shared audience, risks inviting backlash, risks dismantling years of cultivated trust. Yet silence, too, is complicity. By choosing to distance themselves, by refusing to lend their credibility to someone accused of such a violation, they enacted a form of accountability rare in the ecosystem of commentary. It was not the legal system alone that mattered here. It was the cultural system, the ways in which peers either normalize harm or resist it. Hasan's recognition of their decision was itself a form of alignment. He admitted his own surprise, confessed his earlier misjudgment, and in doing so reminded his viewers that character reveals itself not in agreement on politics, but in the choices made when betrayal surfaces. The betrayal at the heart of this story is layered. There is the betrayal of Pixie, whose trust was broken in the most intimate way. There is the betrayal of audience, who believed they were watching debates among individuals who held at least a baseline respect for personal boundaries. And there is the betrayal among peers, as one creator's actions tainted the collaborations and connections of the past. In digital culture, betrayal carries a particular sting because so much of what is shared is staged as intimacy. Viewers spend hours with creators, listening to their voices, watching them react in real time, feeling as though they know them. This parasocial closeness magnifies the sense of violation when accusations surface. The fall of one figure reverberates through countless living rooms and headphones, creating disillusionment far beyond the immediate circle. In this context, critique is more than commentary, is a moral function. When ABBA and Preach spoke against Destiny, they were performing the labor of refusing complicity. They were asserting that some boundaries are not negotiable, that there are actions which cannot be explained away by charisma or cleverness. Hasan's praise was not incidental. It was recognition that in a culture addicted to spectacle, there is still room for integrity. For Hasan, who has often been accused of aligning with questionable figures, this moment allowed him to reposition himself within a moral framework, aligning with those who resist rather than those who excuse. There is another layer here, the question of masculinity. Much of online commentary is staged as combat between men, a performance of dominance through rhetoric. In such spaces, women are often relegated to background, invoked as symbols or props. But the lawsuit reminded all involved that women are not abstractions. The harm inflicted was not symbolic. It was real, bodily, intimate. For ABBA and Preach to critique Destiny was to break with the masculine code of silence, the unspoken agreement to protect one another at all costs. It was to acknowledge that accountability must extend beyond the brotherhood of creators to include those most vulnerable to its betrayals. And yet, none of this unfolds in isolation. The audience is always present, always judging, always ready to amplify one narrative over another. Fans demand responses, create memes, circulate clips. They are not passive consumers, but active participants in the shaping of reputation. The lawsuit against Destiny would not have reverberated so strongly without the chorus of audience reaction. The critique by ABBA and Preach gained traction not only because of what was said, but because audiences elevated it, because Hasan himself echoed it, because the digital commons rewarded integrity, at least for a moment.